babes, I'm Miss Mila Rose and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have another story time for you today. Also, in the last episode, I did make myself some raspberry truffle tea and my tea was too hot to drink. Hopefully by now it has steeped long enough and it's not too hot anymore. So let me finally try it. And it's really good. It's still a softer flavor than I'd like, but the flavor is really nice. Last episode, I left off with me getting asked to be Jet's girlfriend after going to the school dance together. Now, in this time period, we are approaching the end of 8th grade, which means the end of my middle school years because everyone is transitioning to high school, and I do already have my high school picked out, and so does Jet. So that is to set the preface for today's video. Okay, so let's get right into this story time. And with this one, I do actually have to give a disclaimer. This one is going to involve some domestic violence. You can make up your mind if you would like to watch this one or click off, but yes, I am leaving that disclaimer for you to decide. So the relationship that I had with Jet was very puppy dog romance is what I like to call it, because it was so innocent and it wasn't all that serious. After school, he would walk me home part ways. We would get to a light and that was a good place to say our goodbyes, and he would go home, I would go home, and that was basically how our relationship was for, I want to say, like a week or two. And then one day when we were walking and we got to the lights and we were going to say our goodbyes, he snuck a kiss on me. He snuck a kiss on me and I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared. He was just like a quick peck on the lips and you could tell he was nervous about doing it, and then it was just like, and we went on our way. So that was my first kiss. It was very awkward and it was very unprepared and I wasn't expecting it. It was a very quick peck. Again, this romance, it was a very puppy dog, innocent, playful kind of vibe. After that, we did kind of make it a bit of a routine to give each other a quick kiss before going home and parting ways. And eventually he did say that he wanted to walk me to my house. So very close to my house was a hill to get to the Humber River, but it was actually on the other side of the trail and you could get down to a very private area. I like to call it my rock because it was very close to my house. It was right under the bridge basically. It was a large rock, very private area, and I would like to go there and just think about life, draw, I don't know, meditate. I like to go there because it's very peaceful, it's very quiet, and I got to have my own space before having to go home. I suggested that we head into the Humber River one day and we could make out more privately there because we did start progressing our kisses to a bit of a makeout. It was actually really funny because I have this friend, we're going to call her Jenny. And my friend Jenny, she had a little bit more experience with guys. Okay, she had a few boyfriends, I think, at this point, and I knew she knew how to kiss. So I asked her if she could tell me a little bit how to make out, like French kiss. And she explained it verbally, which Thank you, Jenny. I didn't want any tongue action. But yeah, she explained to me like how to breathe, and you probably want to have like gum or something so you have a fresh mouth before getting into each other's spaces. And it was very helpful. And yeah, so we were making out basically next to my house, but like down the hill of my house. I remember my mother calling out for me, like somehow she knew I was there. I think maybe she had seen him walk me home before. I don't think he ever walked me to the front door. Actually, I don't remember if he walked me to the front door. The thing is that my mother is crazy and all of my friends knew this, and so I didn't really want him to walk me all the way home. So I don't think he ever did. Maybe he did. I don't remember. But my mother knew that we were down there basically. And I don't know, like, we were being pretty quiet, so I don't know how she knew we were down there, but we were making out, and she freaked out. So he left and I went home, and my mother, she did this all the time, and it was honestly the worst, but she would snoop through my things. She would find phone numbers for all of my friends. She would find phone numbers for people like Jet, my boyfriend, and she called his house and she had a conversation with his mother, and I guess she suspected that we were doing a lot more than just kissing. And she wasn't just suspecting this, she was convinced of it. She was convinced that we were doing a lot more than kissing. And so basically she told his mother what was going on, allegedly, and basically convinced her that we shouldn't be around each other or together. So that is just one of the many examples of my mother just being an awful person and way too deep in my business. So graduation was very quickly approaching around this time, and we had a getaway to Niagara Falls, and it was an incredible experience. It was mostly time with the girls, and that was awesome, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. And then after that, we had a planned, like, a boat dinner, like a cruise dinner, but just for like the evening, in our graduation gowns, dresses, all that stuff. So I did spend a lot of that time with Jet, and that was kind of like the last bit of romantic experience that we really had. The school year finished, 8th grade was over, middle school was over, and he ended up going on vacation to Cuba for like 2 weeks. And then around my birthday, which was July 23rd, I met up with my friend Amy, and Jet met up with us, and he gave me a birthday card, and then we went on a walk together, and we were just talking a little bit, and we were talking about how we were going to separate high schools and that kind of thing. And I already knew to expect this based on logic alone. I deduced that it was obvious we were going to go separate ways. He's gonna want to experience high school life without a girlfriend that's in a different high school. And I just knew he was gonna do this, but he did break up with me, and I knew that he was doing it because he wanted to see other girls, obviously. He did turn into quite the playboy, and I did get this information from some of my friends. So I kind of was surprised because I didn't expect that to be his persona per se. But also, it's not like I had any attachment to the relationship at all. Again, it was very puppy dog romance. It was very innocent and playful and not at all serious. So that was the first time I had had a relationship, and that was the first time I had been dumped. Though I don't know if you can call it dumping, because we kind of both mutually agreed that we were going to split ways, but he did initiate it, so I guess you could say I was dumped. But again, I didn't really care. I mean, I kind of did, because when you're that age, you're like, oh, I was dumped. But really, I wasn't really all that hurt. I really didn't care that much. So fast forward to 9th grade, I am starting high school. Yay. Actually, no, very frightening. I was really scared. I was really nervous. When 9th grade started and I was going to all these classes and I was meeting all these new people and these teachers and the location, I was kind of a mess. And when I say that, I mean, like, I didn't talk. Like, I couldn't bring myself to speak. Like, I was so nervous. I was so shy. I was so, like, in my shell. It kind of sucked that I was like that, but I really had trouble trying to open up. A lot of my friends also did not go to this high school, and we were very split up. All of my friends from my friend group were going in different directions, and my brother told me that when he transitioned to high school, he pretty much lost all of his friends. And to be quite honest, I did not want that to be the same case for me, because I was really close to some of these girls that were not going to this high school. So I was really sad, I was really bummed, but I was really hopeful that we could maintain friends somehow. Luckily, some girls did go to the same high school. My friend Marie that I was really close to, but again, she didn't attend school very often, so I knew we wouldn't really be in the same classes, and I was gonna have to make new friends. I had another friend that honestly was kind of a bully, but she was really close friends with Marie, and she was also going to this high school. Let's call her Haley. Haley was crazy. And we didn't share any of the same classes either, because this school was divided up into academic classes and non-academic classes, basically the regular classes and then the dumbed down version of the classes. And she was in the non-academic classes and I was in the academic classes. Actually, funny story, my grades didn't really meet the standards for getting into the academic classes. Not that it prevents you, but they give you a recommendation basically based on your grades in your middle school classes. And my brother basically said, no, like, she'll be fine in academic. If she needs help, she can ask me. You really don't need to be all that intelligent to go to the academic classes. I'm really happy for that, and that he vouched for me in that essence, because I did not want to go to non-academic. I was just starting to try to get into my studies and try to get better grades, because again, I knew I had to. But I knew that having the academic classes was the best option for me, and honestly, it really didn't end up being that bad. It was pretty easy for most of the classes. Literally, the only class that I struggled with was math. So I was really shy, and it was really hard for me to make friends. I mean, I was making friends, kind of, but it was really hard for me, and they weren't really like going out friends. They were like surface level friends that I would see in class, and we wouldn't really speak or hang out much after class. After class was when I was spending time with my friends Marie and my friend Haley. We also had another friend. Now, this friend actually was in our middle school, the same middle school, and she was older than us by at least, I think, 1 year. And she went to this high school, so she ended up hanging out with us. She was in the non-academic classes, so I think she made friends with Marie and Haley, and that's how I was introduced to her. She was actually really close friends with Amy too, I remember, because they were both Sri Lankan, so they had something in common. We're gonna call this girl Shannon. We're getting a lot of names now to this story. I hope I can remember them all, because of course none of these names are the real names. Now, Shannon was a very attention-seeking individual, and when I say attention-seeking individual, like, she basically would do anything for attention, and she particularly liked attention from older men. So even though she was 1 year older than us, she was spending a lot of her time with the senior 12th graders, and she was actively trying to hook up with them. I actually quickly started becoming friends with Shannon. I actually started becoming closer to her than my friends Marie and Haley. Again, my friend Haley was a complete bully, and my friend Marie was very similar, just not in the same way. Throughout the entire year, we actually used my locker as a meetup point, because my locker was the only one that was really organized. I didn't have clutter everywhere. I liked to keep my locker clean. I literally had like my stuff in 1 or 2 places, like hang my backpack, and then that was pretty much it. And then my top of my locker was just full of homework and textbooks and things that my friends would just throw into my locker that basically got lost, homework that would never get done, and that kind of thing. And it was really annoying because my friend Haley started to actually like look over my shoulder to see my locker combination, and then a couple times she would like try to steal money from me. And so a couple times I had to go purchase a new lock and have a new locker combination to remember, because I couldn't have her just stealing my things. And she would take like sketches that I would do and like tear them, and she would take pencils I would have and just snap them into. She was just crazy. I was completely fine with them leaving their stuff in my locker, but don't break my stuff, don't steal my stuff just because you literally are insane. Just don't do that, please. Around this time, my mother had lost her job. Now, I don't remember exactly what happened. I don't know if she quit. I don't know if she was fired. I know she was complaining a lot about work. I know she was yelling and screaming all day, every day, complaining about this, complaining about that. It would start off as, my coworkers, my boss, they're sluts, they're witches. And then it would move on to, my brothers are assholes, this and that. And then she'd move into, I hate my husband, you kids are the worst, blah, blah, blah. Like, she would just be on a rant, and she would have a list, and that list grew every single day. And because she was now home 24/7, literally the screaming and yelling was from morning, from the time that she woke up to the time it was time to go to bed. And it was a constant just screaming, yelling situation in the house, and there was absolutely no peace. The house was absolute chaos. It was the worst. Like, I definitely yelled at my mother too. I'm not going to repeat the verbiage here, but a lot. And of course, she would still keep going and complain that I'm being a bad child because I'm using vulgar language. But it's like, seriously though, can you? I mean, I realized it was wrong for me to use such vulgar language towards my mother, but I seriously can't blame my younger self for doing this at all with the circumstances that surrounded me. So because my mother was jobless, she didn't just volunteer, but she was very pushy and shovey about driving me to school and picking me up from school and taking me back home. And of course, my friends at school, they want to hang out after school, and they're doing this without me for the first, few days, few weeks of school, and I'm like, whatever, I'm just getting used to things here anyway. But it was really annoying because I'd be on top of things, I'd be ready to go, and my mother's still asleep in bed, and she would literally not let me leave the house. Like, if she heard me leave the house, she would jump up out of bed even if she wasn't even ready to go, and she would take me to school. So I would have to be waking her up in the morning to get her out of bed to take me to school, because she wouldn't have any of it of me walking to school by myself. And yet her time management at this time in life was just awful. This even played into aspects like getting her to sign a release form for school or something like that. Like, I would give her the paper and she would refuse to sign it because she has to read it over first. She would put it on a table that's literally helter-skelter full of sheets and papers and books and things and clutter that she literally never cleaned, and it would just sit there and get lost there. And eventually I would be like, hey, did you sign it? Hey, did you sign it? Hey, did you sign it? No, I haven't read it yet. So my mother was kind of the worst, but as I've already explained this already, she's already the worst. But anyway, I was getting really sick of this waiting game with her, of her waking up in the morning to drive me to school, of her signing things for me to have papers for teachers for things. So we started forging her signature, and I started refusing to even bother with her in the morning, and I would just refuse to let her follow me. I would speed walk to school, and then after school I would avoid the parking lot at all costs, and I would not let her try to drive me or pick me up from school. But do you think she would have any of that? Absolutely not. So one day after school, I'm with my friend Marie and my friend Haley, and we are right outside the front of the school. We're having a conversation, and then one of my friends has to get something or something. So she takes her backpack off and she asks if I can hold it for her for a moment while she does something or pulls something out. I don't even remember. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I can do that. And all of a sudden, my mom barges in, yelling, screaming. She's throwing a fit. The entire school is just staring at my mother and at this scene and at me. And she's yelling about them making me hold their backpack. And she grabs me by my shirt, tugs me, pulls me, and all eyes are on me. Not even kidding, the entire school that's outside the front of the school is just staring at this scene. And I literally am so humiliated and embarrassed that I don't even have it in me to react. So I just let her pull me. And she's pulling me, and she's yelling, and she's screaming, and she's swearing, and she's taking me to the car that she's parked in the parking spot. And I'm not saying a word because I'm already humiliated and embarrassed as is. Do I want to yell and scream at my mother? Oh yeah, I do. But I wasn't going to do this right in front of the entire school. So I just shut up. My face was probably going cherry tomato red because I was so embarrassed and humiliated. We get to the car. I am pissed, but I'm silent pissed. I buckle up. We are driving home. Towards the end of the drive, I think I'm starting to argue with my mother, but relatively calm still. And then we get into the house. I am just pissed. And I am just livid. I am not staying here. F you. I'm leaving. And so my mother and I get into a literal physical altercation because my mother won't let me leave the house. But I am so livid with her of how she just reacted in front of the entire school and humiliated me in front of everyone and pulled me away physically from my friends. I'm trying to exit the front door. My mother's locking it. My mother's deadbolting it. I'm trying to get through the door. Then she calls over my father, and my father comes over, and both of them are blocking me from going through the front door. So I run to the back door, and then they deadbolt that door with like a wooden stick, because it's a sliding door that like stops the door from being able to open, essentially, because I think the lock didn't work or something, I don't remember. And I'm trying to get through one of these doors and I can't, because one of my parents is just like, no, you're not leaving the house. So I'm still like at it with my mother, like yelling, screaming, like I'm pissed. My mother's literally non-negotiable. I don't completely remember how the situation evolved. So it was so quick, it was so fast, I was so pissed. She was in a rage of her own. She and I got into a physical altercation, and she grabbed me by the hair to like get a hold of me because I was trying not to let her get me. She slams me on the floor. She has me so I'm on my stomach. She's sitting on my back, pushing me into the floor. And I literally, for the life of me, I can't get up. And all I hear is my mother cackling and laughing. And when I say now I know my mother is a narcissist, my mother is a narcissist. But I didn't know that at this time. I didn't even know what a narcissist was. But having a narcissistic parent is probably the worst type of parent you could have. So my mother is literally laughing and cackling that she is basically holding power over her daughter. At this point, I start screaming and yelling. My dad's laying back on the couch where he basically spends all day every day, because I don't know if I explained that. Did I talk about this? I don't know if I talked about this, but I'm gonna briefly discuss it if I haven't. Basically, one day, my dad had to stop working because he had magically appeared that he had 6 broken ribs. Now, of course, my parents have gotten into scuffles before, so I'm like, maybe they got into a fight so bad she broke 6 of his ribs. I don't know. But basically, he was out of work with 6 broken ribs, and he was on unemployment, and my mother was also on unemployment. So at this time in my life, both my parents were on unemployment. They were home all the time. They had their psychological issues, and we were on like food stamps, and like we were getting free food because we literally couldn't afford anything. And I think we were paying like $100 for our rent because we couldn't afford anything. And because we were in like a co-op situation, we could do that or something. I don't know. It's not like I knew what was going on completely. I just knew my parents were jobless, we were broke, and yeah. So here I am on the floor, laying on my stomach, screaming for help. My father could care less. My mother's cackling like a maniac. I hear my brother run down the stairs, and then this scene is just a blur. My brother lifts my mom off of me, and I stand up like dizzy, honestly, because I think I'm like literally like, what is going on? I turn around to my side, and my brother is taking my mom's head by her hair and repeatedly smashing her head into the wall and like kind of mocking her, like, you like this or something like that, repeatedly. And I'm just shaking. I'm like, what is going on? And I look over, and my dad is just on the couch just watching like nonchalantly, and I'm just like shaking and freaking out. So I open the door, and to the back door, because my brother and my mother were close to the front door, and like I'm like kind of shaking now thinking about it. This was one of the stories, by the way, that like I had the most trouble talking about. I think the only reason why I can talk about it a little bit better now is because I did go to therapy and I told my entire life story, and yes, it was hard, but because I was going through the memories, I was able to process them again. So it's not as hard for me to talk about it right now, but I'm shaking thinking about it because I'm kind of reliving it. So I go out the back door. I run around to the side of the house by the gate. Because it's easier to climb over. I hop the gate, and I take off down towards the bridge to start heading I'm just walking. I'm just walking and I'm shaking and I'm freaking out. I'm trying to calm myself and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. Like, where am I going? Where am I going? I'm like, okay, I know that Marie and Haley always go to Haley's house after school. I'm going to go to Haley's house. Marie will be there. We can hang out. I'm like, okay. What am I going to say? What am I going to say to Haley and Marie when I get there? And I'm trying to like figure out like what to say, like an excuse, like why am I there, right? As I'm actively walking towards Haley's house, I'm like, okay, maybe I can just be like, hey guys, do you want to go take a walk in the park or something? I think that would be fun. And like I was like trying to keep tears from flooding my eyes and trying to keep cool and trying to like keep like myself together. And I get to the point where I'm like, mentally I think I'm like, okay, yeah, I can say it with a straight face. I can get there, I can get to Haley's house and I can say it with a straight face, and I can tell, I can ask Haley and Marie, hey, do you want to go to the park? So I finally get to Haley's house and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm actually here. What do I do? So I knock at the door. Like, I don't even know if Marie's going to be there. I'm just assuming, right? I knock at the door and they're both there and they both answer the door. And I start like, I'm still shaking. And I try to get the words out and I'm like, hey, do you want, and I'm like starting to like crack and shake and I'm trying to get these words out, and through like the first half, I just like break down. Like I can't contain it anymore. And like they look really concerned. Like at first they looked confused, I think, and then they looked like really concerned. And I can't remember which of the girls came in for a hug, maybe both. I don't remember. It was such like a blur. But yeah, I just had a full-on meltdown. So yeah, that I think is where I'm going to leave off, because that was a pretty intense story in and of itself, and it does calm down from there, but that's kind of where it peaks, and that's kind of pretty much the end of it in this segment. The story time was definitely a little crazier. The next story time episode, though, is going to be a lot easier because I'm going into another romance. It's actually kind of like a love triangle, and it gets really juicy and really spicy. So you don't want to miss the next episode. It's not going to be like this at all. I don't need to give any disclaimers for that one. That one's going to be pretty easy to talk about too. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of drama. There's going to be a lot of spicy, juicy content in that one, so stay tuned for the next episode. If you're enjoying my Storytime series, please give me a big thumbs up, subscribe down below, turning on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode in this series, and I'll see you next time with the next episode. Bye for now, till next time.